Hi, welcome back, or welcome for the first time if this is your first time watching any of my videos. My name is Bryn. I do a lot of videos regarding gender transition or other LGBT things, and I also make videos about my cystic fibrosis, but typically it's related to LGBT stuff. So today, I wanted to talk about the pros and cons essentially of using labels, and this is going to be geared more towards like LGBT labels rather than other labels, just because that is my experience. I have a lot of experience with labeling myself based on gender and sex, and sexuality. And at the end of this video, I'm going to go through every single label that I have ever claimed to be, which is going to be a nice fucking list because I've been through a lot of changes in my life. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. I don't think labels are good or bad. What's that called? Inherently. I don't think they're inherently good or bad. I don't think you can apply that label to all labels. But I do think that like a balance, I guess, is maybe not necessarily needed. I think for some people it's not needed, but I think, I don't know, I think there's a lot to unpack here. So I think labels can be a really beneficial and beautiful thing. I'm having a hard time with my words. Yeah, I feel like labels can kind of give you a home, especially if you're very lost and you're not really feeling grounded in who you are, especially regarding like gender or sexuality or whatever, because oh, this feels better. Okay. I think that labels can be really beneficial because you can kind of use them to navigate the world, and you can also use them to find a community. And labels, especially if they're more common labels like gay, lesbian, trans, things like that, a lot of people understand what that means, or at least the gist of it, and so you don't have to go into explaining how you feel because you just have a word that encompasses all of that, which can be really beneficial. And it can also, I feel like, make you very confident because, one, if there's a label for it, that means there's other people that are feeling it. So to be able to even say, I can like take away a lot of that like internal shame that someone may have had, or like internalized homophobia or like whatever, thinking like, oh, well, I'm the only one, or whatever, like, they know that there's an entire group of people in this world who relate to them and they are not alone. And I think that that's like a really beautiful part of using labels. It gives you a community, it gives you a home, it gives you confidence. It can give you the word to express how you're feeling. A lot of people struggle with expressing how they feel or what they're thinking or things like that. And so if they're able to, you know, if someone says that they're like, I don't know, like agender, for example, and somebody is like, well, what the fuck is that? Well, because there's a word for it, you can even just say, go look it up on the fucking internet, because now you have a word. Whereas if you were, if you didn't have the word, then you'd be trying to explain all these feelings, and you might not have the words to express those feelings, because you don't know how to word it. So if you just use the label, then it kind of does all the work for you, essentially, and it can make things a lot easier. Because that way, you know, if you're telling your friend that you're agender and someone is like, and your friend is like, I don't understand what that means, well, they can sit down on a computer and read all these experiences of these other people who feel the same and like understand it, and you don't have to stress about knowing how to word it. I think labels can be very comfortable, and I don't know, I feel like they kind of help you navigate the world. I don't know, like the experiences that I go through based on my labels are very different than the experiences that somebody else goes through. And so if I can use these labels, I don't know, there's people that relate. It's I don't know. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with my work. Um but yeah, I don't know, I think it's really great. I think labels can be a really beautiful thing. But getting into the cons, I think the issue is that sometimes you can get stuck on labels. So, for example, let's say someone considers themselves to be a gay man. Okay, we'll use that example. And then he, goes to a bar and he sees this beautiful woman and he like is really attracted to her. And then he's like suddenly having an identity crisis as to like how the fuck he can find a woman attractive if he's a gay man, you know. And I think sometimes, and I've done this before, people can tend to kind of get attached to their labels. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because that can give, like I said, I already went through how great that can be. But I think where it can turn into an issue is where you're hesitant to learn about yourself or grow or change because it means that the label changes. And I know that for a long time, I remember specifically when I came out as a trans woman before I ever came out as non-binary. And when I did that, I remember feeling so upset that, like, when I realized, like, I'm not a woman. Because I was like, oh my god, like, I keep changing my sexuality, I keep changing my gender, like, nobody's gonna take me seriously, stuff like that. And, I mean, that is a possibility that people won't take you seriously if you keep changing it or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't change it. Labels are essentially a device used to express how we're feeling. So if how we're feeling is changing, there's nothing wrong with changing your label. And I think a part of the, at least for me, a part of the hesitation with changing my label so many times is I hear, and I think a lot of people in the LGBT community hear this, that, oh, like, people always knew that they were gay or that they were trans or whatever, like, all the stories you hear in the media, all the stories you hear on, like, TV and TV shows or movies or, like, whatever, like, all the interviews, it's always like, oh, I remember, when I was 5 years old and I was feeling this way, or whatever. Like, people date it back to, like, being a child. Like, I've always been this way, whether it's gay, trans, literally anything. They're like, well, this is always how I've been. And so if you're changing your labels, it's like, well, is this even valid? Because I don't remember being 5 years old and knowing this. I don't remember growing up feeling so uncomfortable or, like, whatever. And so I think it feels like it invalidates you, because one of the major, like, arguments to support gay and trans people and other LGBT people is that this is who they are and this is always how they've been. And people see this is how they've always been as a way to legitimize or validate their identity or their experience or whatever. But then it leaves people who haven't always known this or haven't, always felt this way or, like, whatever. It can make them feel invalidated because it's, like, not the standard. And I think that as a community, it's important to listen to people's experiences and to let people change. And I think people see change and they think, well, that means it was never real before, right? But that's not true. So, oh, what is that? Ooh, sorry, there was something on my phone. But yeah, I feel like people really people would be a lot more likely to respect, say, a trans man who's been saying, I'm a boy since he was 5 years old, versus a trans man who just came out 2 weeks ago. Because people, for some reason, feel the need to have other people prove how they feel instead of just believing how they feel, which is fucked up. And it leaves a lot of damage on trans people and gay people and stuff, people who, you know, haven't always had it figured out. And it's okay to not always have it figured out. It's okay if you live till you're like 40 thinking you're like a straight woman, and then you see some really beautiful woman and you fall in love and suddenly you're a lesbian or bisexual or like whatever, and you never thought about being with a woman before. Like, that's okay. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like people are afraid to change when they have a label. And not everybody, but a lot of people are afraid to change because they're going, well, I've been a lesbian for 5 years, so, and I haven't liked any men, and now this man walked in and I like him, and like, how does this make sense? How could this make sense? This couldn't make sense. I had myself all figured out, and it does make sense because people can change. And not that anybody should change or like that it's inherently better to change, but it's okay to change. And I think that was a hard thing for me to learn because I don't know, I just felt like no one would take me seriously because like every other year I'm like coming out with a new part of me and people are just like, okay, like whatever. But like for some people, not having a label is liberating. And for some people, having a label is liberating. So it doesn't really matter. I think my like point of this video, I guess, is to like let you know that one, it's okay to change. It's okay to change daily, yearly, monthly, decadely, like whatever. It's okay to change. There's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't invalidate the way that you used to feel, and it doesn't invalidate the way that you feel now, even if it's brand new. It's okay for things to be brand new. They're still real. They're still real. And the second thing is just to be cautious, and to allow yourself to move freely. Labels are meant to be used, like I said, as a tool to express how you're feeling. They're not there to keep you in a box. So if, you know, for 5 years you used the term lesbian and that felt right and now it doesn't, it's okay to change your label or to just not have a label on your sexuality. Like, it's fine. But don't get so stuck, like I think one thing that was really frustrating to me is like, specifically with my sexuality, like one day I'd be like, well, I'm not attracted to men. I kind of feel like a lesbian. And then like the next fucking day I'd be attracted to a man and I'm like, how does this make sense? This doesn't make sense. And once I started to sort of accept that, like, yeah, there are times where I don't like men at all, and then there are times where I'm really into men, or whatever, like, I don't know what the word is for that, but I still feel comfortable in knowing that's how I feel, and that's who I am, and, like, things can be fluid, things can change, and it's okay. Even if 9 times out of 10 I'm not attracted to men, there's nothing wrong with when the 1/10 of the time I am. So I just encourage all of you to be open to change, and to not stick yourself in a box if it's not working anymore. But I would say, I mean, use labels as much as you want. I think it gives you a really great community and a really great confidence and like a really great way to express how you're feeling without having to like actually go into the feelings. Like, it's just a word. You don't have to like be vulnerable and like expressing all this stuff, you know. I mean, I guess it can definitely be vulnerable using a word, but I feel like it's a little bit less vulnerable probably than going into like the intricate details of how your heart feels when this happens or like whatever. So yeah. So final thing though, I did say I wanted to do this. I wanted to go through all the labels that I've been through, so that way, like, one, just because, like, I haven't even thought about it, so I'm kind of curious as to how many there are, and two, that way you can know that, like, it's okay to go from label to label, because I've done that. So I was assigned male at birth, meaning I was born with a penis, raised as a boy. So when I was 13, I came out as bisexual while I was dating that very first girl that I dated that I didn't really care about. When I was 14, or well, at some point I came out as gay. So I came out as bisexual, and I told her, and I told some of my friends, I'd never been with a guy. When I entered high school, I made out with a guy in front of a bunch of people at a football game. So everyone knew that I liked guys. I don't remember if I said that I was gay or if I said that I was bi. I think I said that I was bi, but I remember by the time I was a sophomore, I was like sure that I was gay and not bi. That I only liked men. And the whole bi thing at that point was just because I was afraid to commit to being gay. So I was out as gay for a while. When I was a senior in high school, I came out, well, not to everybody, but I came out to some of my friends as a trans woman, trans girl, whatever. And trying to think. Yeah, and at that point I still only liked guys. Then a few years later I started hormones when I was 19, I think. And then I started dating a guy, but when I started hormones I started liking women. So then I was like, okay, well maybe I'm bisexual or pansexual, and I was like really hyper focused on that for a while. Couldn't really get a word that made sense. Then I really liked the term lesbian for the times when I wasn't feeling like I liked men, but I felt like it wasn't completely accurate because there were times when I liked men and it just made things confusing. Then I came out as non-binary, okay? And then I came out as whatever I am now in regards to sexuality, because, like, I don't know, I don't have a label for it because I have not found a word that, you know, explains everything that I'm feeling. So I just don't have a label for my sexuality, which is okay with me now. I put a lot of stress on myself trying to find a label, and then I was like, why do I need a label? So I don't have a label for my sexuality. For my gender, I do still consider myself non-binary. I use the term queer. I have used the term agender before. I don't know if that quite fits, but I think it sort of does. I also use the words androgynous or neutral or transandrogynous or transneutral. I also need to look into androgyne and neutois. I don't know, there's a lot of labels that I use, and a lot of them make me feel at home. Like, calling myself androgynous, like, or when other people tell me I look androgynous, like, that is my, like, that feels cozy, if that makes sense, and, like, warm and, like, good. Like, that feels very accurate and very right. And the other terms, like non-binary and stuff, definitely fit, but definitely androgynous is, like, one of my favorite terms. And I don't think that that's going to change, but who knows, maybe it will, but probably not, because that's one of the things that I have felt for as far as I can remember, that I wanted to be androgynous. I just didn't know that, but like looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it was. I just didn't know that I could be that, you know? So I think that's everything. I hope you liked it. Hopefully I'm not boring as fuck. So let me know if you have any labels that you like. Let me know in the comments below. Like, I'd love to hear all the labels, or like especially if you have one that's like not super common or something. Like, if you want to like let me know, just so I can research, so I can like figure out what they mean, because I'm always curious as to, I know there's so many different terms, so I think it's really interesting to see what they all mean. So, all right, I hope you all have a nice day. It's lovely talking to you.